Hey there, HorseCenter fans. Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. Matt, we are loaded up for bear this week. We have the Pacific Classic 4-star Dave. Lots more to talk about in the Oaks and Derby.
Yes, sir. We are just a little bit more than 2 weeks from the big weekend at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, and we have Maximum Security running Saturday. Watch it all here right now on HorseCenter. Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the extra special pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I am doing okay, Brian. We got all kinds of things to talk about today. Regular stakes races and a little over 2 weeks till the Oaks and the Derby.
That's right. 16 days until Derby, Matt. But hey, who finished first in the Derby last year? I'll give you a hint. He also won an Eclipse Award as the champion 3-year-old male.
I guess that would be our friend Maximum Security.
Maximum Security, star-crossed, Matt. He has been something else on the racetrack, but he's had so much controversy over his career. Hey, he's back. He's back. He came back with a nice win in the San Diego. I think it's nice. I saw people complaining that he only won by a nose or so. I guess it was pretty close there at the end with midcourt, but I thought it was a good performance coming back, mile and a 16th, giving weight, not having the best of trips. First time being ridden by Abel Cedillo. Now he comes back equal weights, Pacific Classic at a mile and a quarter. Matt, are we going to see the best out of Maximum Security this time?
I don't know if we'll see the very best, but I think we're going to see another good performance. And I agree. I thought that what he did in the San Diego handicap was quite good. He, as you said, didn't have the best of trips. He was able to run down midcourt, who had everything his way on the front end, game horse. And midcourt is back in the Pacific Classic, stretching out to the mile and a quarter. Higher Power is back, who won the race last year. But we already know that Maximum Security can get the distance of a mile and a quarter, which he did last year in the Kentucky Derby. And with all the Derby doings going on, all that Maximum Security stuff comes back as he's got a big race at Del Mar.
Yeah, and despite horses like Tis the Law, Tom's d'Etat, people still think that Maximum Security, a lot of people still think that Maximum Security is the best dirt horse in the world, Matt. And he just might be, but we need to see what he does in the Pacific Classic. I actually think this is a key race for him to see if he moves forward. Having already said that, I thought his San Diego was a fine effort considering everything that went on in the race and the weights there. I think he does need to move forward just a little bit if he's going to be a Breeders' Cup Classic winner in a few months against horses like Tis the Law and Tom's d'Etat, who have been racing a little bit more regularly this year on American soil. But I'm expecting a move forward in here. I think things are pointing to Maximum Security improving off that San Diego, Matt. He's working really well for trainer Bob Baffert. This is his second start, of course, in the Baffert barn. Second start under Abel Cedillo, and I just expect a more aggressive ride this time. I don't know if that means he's on the lead with midcourt coming off the rail, but I don't think he'll let Higher Power make a move and pass him and drop back to third and then kind of have to rally on the outside like he did in the San Diego. I think he's going to be keeping an eye on midcourt early and often in here, Matt, and I do expect to move forward. And really, folks, again, I hate to pick favorites, but in this race, it's hard to see Maximum Security getting beat unless he just doesn't fire.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. In the Pacific Classic, I think Maximum Security is going to continue to do well. And this is not the kind of race where I want to take a shot against his favorite. In my mind, the only question marks that I have is that under Bob Baffert in his new training regimen. This is a little bit different for him. He's coming back a little quicker between races than he usually does. And he's certainly working a lot harder in his breezes in the morning than he did with Jason Service. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's something different. But I do expect Maximum Security to win.
Yeah, good point, Matt. Things are different for a few reasons here for maximum security in the summer of 2020, but I only think that's a good thing. He's a big, strong horse. He's kind of a tank of a horse, and I really like him in here, and I think he moves forward as one of the favorites for this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. Last year's three-year-old champion didn't run in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. So he gets a sentence. He'll get a chance to prove himself all over again this year, and it starts here in the Pacific Classic. Really, I don't think Midcourt is going to be able to do what he did in the San Diego. So I think things are going to be tougher for Midcourt. Higher Power probably is the horse most likely to run second or third in here. Remember how well he ran at 1.25 miles at Del Mar last year in the Pacific Classic. I also think Higher Power probably sits a little bit more relaxed trip this time than he did last time in the San Diego, where he made that early move, and that probably took him out of his game a little bit. Higher Power, maybe a good bet to run second, but most likely the second choice in here.
Yes, that's true. I think Midcourt, the added distance to 1.25 miles is not going to be in his favor. Higher Power actually hasn't won a race since the Pacific Classic last year.
Yeah, that's true, Matt. But on the other hand, his 1.25 mile races have been pretty good, running second to Improbable in the Gold Cup and running third last year in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So Higher Power looks like a horse who appreciates 1.25 miles for trainer John Sadler. I think the other three horses in this 6-horse field are pretty interesting. They all should be rather, looking more like long shots in here after the top three. But I think they all have something to like, at least. Dark Vader is a nice, consistent horse with good tactical speed who can add to the early pace that we talked about with Midcourt and Maximum Security. Sharp Samurai has been a real consistent, top-notch turfer. He hasn't won a lot lately, but if you look at that Eddie Reed where he rallied up the rail last time, that was a real sharp race for Sharp Samurai. Now he switches to dirt at 1.25 miles. If he can take that turf form to dirt, he could be another horse that gets into the picture a little bit. But the one I like best of the long shots, Matt, is the unknown quantity of Murnique. And forgive my pronunciation there, of the Argentinian invader. But you got to like what he's done. He's been very consistent in Argentina. I think Argentina is the best racing I see when horses come over from South America. It's usually Argentina a step above the other South American countries. And he's won 4 in a row on dirt. He's been the distance. Looks like a Group 1 horse down there in South America. Maybe he can run a race at 1.25 miles here, Matt.
Yeah, we shall see. But I think those horses that you just mentioned in those last few have a good shot to get third in the race, because I kind of see Midcourt maybe dropping way back as they come down the stretch.
Now, we're in agreement then. Yeah, I'm picking against Midcourt this time. So for me, it's Maximum Security and Trifectas over mostly Higher Power and Murnique, the Argentina, in the Pacific Classic. But we're all on pins and needles waiting to see. It's pretty late, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific time out there at Del Mar. We're all waiting eagerly to see what Maximum Security can do in his second race back since coming back from Saudi Arabia. All right, Matt, a lot of big racing this weekend. We're going to touch on a few other races. I want to talk turf a little bit. In fact, first, let's just mention United, because I think he's one of the most underrated horses in all of America. The gelded son of Giants Causeway, Matt, ran such a big race last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf, and he made the Horse of the Year. Bricks and Mortar really earned that Breeders' Cup Turf because United wasn't relenting a bit. I think he was about 50-1 in that Breeders' Cup Turf, coming off a loss. But this year, there are no losses to see for United. He's 3 for 3 this year, Matt, all in graded stakes out in California. Why aren't people talking about him as a potential turf champion this year?
I guess maybe because he hasn't won a Grade 1 yet, Brian, but certainly has done absolutely nothing wrong since that long shot performance in the Breeders' Cup. He's got 3 Grade 2s in a row. He's going for another one in here, stretching out to 1 3/8 miles on the turf for Richard Mandella.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit United because we haven't talked to United, and I think he's become a terrific turf horse, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he can beat horses like Zula Alpha and maybe Instilled Regard of the best Americans come the Breeders' Cup Turf this year. A horse who deserves some recognition, running in that Pacific Classic undercard. Now at Saratoga, Matt, there's a turf race they're running called the 4-Star Dave. We of course all remember the legend at Saratoga that 4-Star Dave was, winning year after year after year there at Saratoga. And now he has this race named after him, and it's a Grade 1 turf race, Matt. Mile on the grass. These are some of the top milers in the country. And interestingly, the horses that ran 1, 2, 3 in this race last year are all back.
Yeah, it's interesting. The field, there's a field of 9 in the race, 4 of them coming from the barn of Chad Brown. And if you've been following Saratoga meeting this summer, you might have been saying about some of the other big turf races that have run so far. Where are all the Chad Brown horses? Well, here they come, and Chad has certainly been heating up in terms of getting back on top of the trainer standings at Saratoga. He's got 4 in the 4-Star Dave, and one of them is the mare Uni.
Yeah, Uni was, of course, a champion, an Eclipse Award winner as our outstanding female turf runner. She didn't have the greatest of trips when she was 3rd last year behind Got Stormy, who got the pretty easy win after making a nice move early in the stretch. She rallied late with another Chad Brown, Raging Bull, who nosed her out for 2nd in the 4-Star Dave last year. But Uni's had only 1 race this year, and it was kind of a so-so performance in which she was 3rd behind Newspaper of Record. But on the other hand, Newspaper of Record was free on a pretty easy, uncontested, moderate fractions kind of lead that day. Not Uni's best chance to win. I think she gets a better pace here in the 4-Star Dave, and of the Chad Browns, she's got as much chance as anyone. But you got to give Raging Bull, who again nosed her out last year, has a nice win this year, just missed a Keeneland in his last race. He is a horse who really always fires.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think those are absolutely the top 2 Chad Browns in the race, and maybe the top 2 in the entire race. The other 2 Chad Browns don't quite have the resume, but hey, that other Chad Brown factor has produced winners sometimes. So it's never smart to completely ignore those kind of horses.
Yeah, and I still don't think it's completely smart to forget about Got Stormy. Now, Mark Casse is on a real schneid at Saratoga this summer, and Got Stormy simply has not been as good this year as she was last year. But on the other hand, she really turned things on last summer at Saratoga. Firm turf at Saratoga. She was a monster in a couple of races, including the 4-Star Dave, where she ran the field off their hooves, winning in very fast time. If she can improve getting to Saratoga this year, you can't throw her out, but there's a reason there. Some people are calling this the 4-Star Chad, Matt. Actually, I just made that up. I haven't heard that, but maybe it should be the 4-Star Chad with 4 horses in here. Certainly, his other 2 are not horses you can throw out. The 4-year-old is an interesting horse who hasn't gotten great trips, and without parole, he seems like a horse who finds a little trouble, but he's been right there with Raging Bull in both of their last 2 efforts. So yeah, Chad Brown kind of has this race by the throat, it looks like. I'm going to root for the fillies again. I'm not sure if Got Stormy is just past her prime and Uni needs to improve, but I'm not loving this race as a betting race, but I'd like to see the fillies, Uni and Got Stormy, do well in the 4-Star Dave.
Yeah, Brian, I think, you mentioned Casse being having no wins at Saratoga thus far. And this has happened in the past with Casse. He's gotten off to very slow starts at Saratoga. And I think last year was the case also, where Got Stormy really kick-started his barn. But yeah, I don't know what to think about Got Stormy. She just got back to Saratoga after getting a little break after her last race. So we'll see. I like the filly Uni on top in the 4-Star Dave.
There you go. Another great weekend of racing here this summer, as we've been saying pretty much every weekend this summer, Matt. And some of the stars of this summer have been 3-year-old fillies. 3-year-old fillies like Gumeen, what she did test at Saratoga, and what Swiss Skydiver did last week in the Alabama. Two really, really strong performances, Matt, and what that sets us up for, I think, is a most intriguing edition of the Kentucky Oaks. You said it was 16 days until the Kentucky Derby. That means there's only 15 days until the Kentucky Oaks, if my math 16 minus 1 is correct, Matt. And I'm really looking forward to this. Now, you got other nice fillies in there, like Speech, who won the Ashland nicely last time, and She Dares the Devil. She Dares the Devil, who's getting better and better for trainer Brad Cox. Maybe Donna Veloci off a layup can run a big race. She's a talented filly. But everybody wants to talk about Gamine and Swiss Skydiver, and I think we should talk about Gamine and Swiss Skydiver because I think it's an interesting dynamic here in which you got two real speed fillies, but one is coming out of 1.25 miles, the other's coming out of 7 furlongs, and they're going to meet 9 furlongs at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other interesting storylines. When you look at those two horses, you've got Gamine, who only has 4 starts in her career to this point, and you've got Swiss Skydiver, who's got 9 starts, certainly has done a lot more racing in her career. You've got Gamine, who sold for $1.6 million as a 2-year-old, compared to Swiss Skydiver, who sold for only $35,000. You've got Baffert, you've got Kenny McPeak, you've got the two horses with that have put up huge speed figures. So there's a lot of intriguing things. I saw a poll this past week that Andy Serling put up on Twitter asking fans who they thought was going to win the Oaks between Gamine and Swiss Skydiver and Speech. And it was interesting. He got 1,800 responses, and Gamine was just slightly ahead of Swiss Skydiver in the poll. So they're so evenly matched, and the racing fans seem to be kind of split right down the middle on them. It's just an intriguing matchup.
An intriguing matchup, and that poll was close with Gamine as the choice, but I really do expect Gamine to be the favorite. And you say evenly matched. I'm not sure if they're evenly matched, but what I do know is they're two special 3-year-old fillies, so it makes it very interesting. Now, Gamine, since she got that tough race in an allowance race at Oaklawn Park by Speech, a Grade 1 winner since then, she really took to things in a big way back at one turn, first the mile at Belmont Park and then the 7 furlongs at Saratoga. So she's stretching back out to 2 turns. And I think that's a danger, or at least something that you have to consider when looking at this. Swiss Skydiver, on the other hand, probably isn't quite as quick as Gamine, but she has the ability either to go to the lead or just sit right off and make that big move. We've seen it now 5 consecutive races, Matt. You know, if not for Art Collector, probably the second choice in the Kentucky Derby, Swiss Skydiver would have 5 big graded stakes victories in a row, easy graded stakes victories in a row at 5 different racetracks in 5 different states, distances from 1 16 to 1.25 miles. What she's putting together this year is pretty special, and if she can keep running like she has been, I actually give her a slight edge. I think she can. I think she can take the game to Gamine at some point during the race and see what Gamine has left, and maybe that even opens the door for some of the others that we started to mention a little bit. But I'm more of a fan of Swiss Skydiver, but on the other hand, I think Gamine might have potential to be a once in a decade kind of 3-year-old filly. So I'm excited about this matchup, as you can tell.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I agree. I think Gamine, with the Bob Baffert factor and the big speed figures and the open length victories, is certainly going to end up the favorite. I think her supporters will say, hey, she ran 2 turns already in that allowance race at Oaklawn Park. But that was exactly that. It was just an allowance race, and they're going 1 16 and she got the 2 turns. This is a whole different ball game, going 1 1/8 against this kind of quality field. I guess I, like you, I love the campaign that Swiss Skydiver has put together. Sure looked like the 1 1/4 was no problem at all in the Alabama.
That's for sure. Yeah, Swiss Skydiver's win in the Alabama was scintillating. But on the other hand, she doesn't win races like Gamine does, and that's part of the reason I think Gamine will be the favorite, because her Acorn and Test were just off the charts. Different game, 2 turns, and real serious pressure from Swiss Skydiver. So we'll see. But we just wanted to give you an early look at what's shaping up as a true showdown. You don't get 3-0 filly showdowns like this in the Kentucky Oaks or barely ever. So Gamine Swiss Skydiver topping the Kentucky Oaks in 15 days. We're going to talk more about it as we get closer to the race. As of course, we're going to talk a whole lot more about the Kentucky Derby, Matt. As I looked at this field a month ago and I saw horses like Ete Indian and Chivalry and maybe even Swiss Skydiver, I was looking at a race where I thought there was a good amount of speed. Now I'm beginning to wonder if that's true. Maybe Authentic is the one lone true speed horse in this Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, that might be, Brian. It certainly doesn't look like a field that, is loaded with horses that are hell-bent on getting to the front. Right now, it looks like there are 19 horses that seem to be confirmed as going to enter the Kentucky Derby. But hey, it seems this is the way the Derby has been in recent history. I just want to remind folks that you've got to go back to 2013 to Orb to find a horse that really came running off the pace to win the Kentucky Derby. Since then, it basically has been horses that have been stalking or very close to the front end. Of course, last year's Kentucky Derby, you have to look at that in both ways, with Maximum Security crossing the finish line in front, racing up on the front end, and Country House was stalking just like all the other Derby winners since Orb have been doing.
Yeah, and of course, back in 2013, that pace really collapsed after crazy fast early fractions by Palace Malice, and Orb and others came and zoomed by. I'm not expecting now a super fast pace in this Kentucky Derby, but it's interesting because, yeah, Authentic looks like the horse who's most likely to get the lead, but on the other hand, Art Collector certainly is able to be on the lead, or at least right there hounding Authentic, and then many of the others. Tis the Law certainly is capable of being pretty darn close to that pace. King Guillermo, New York Traffic, and even a few of the others. Caro, Honore P. I don't think they'll be too far back. The lightly raced, intriguing, super talented horse from Canada, Cheryl Spates, another one I think could be pressing the pace early. So it looks like you got just a little bit of speed, but you got a whole lot of horses who want to be really close to that lead or pretty close to the lead. So maybe positions 2 through 8 or 9 here is going to be a little bit of a scrum. And in that, like the horses I mentioned, I think you have the main players in this year's Kentucky Derby.
I agree with that, Brian. And I think the biggest question racing fans need to think about as they start handicapping the Kentucky Derby is how many of those horses that we mentioned are going to have any run left in them in the final furlong.
Yeah, and that's that's part of the Kentucky Derby. Whether it be post position or whether it be a little pinball or squeezed or checked action with, we're talking a lot of horses here who want to stalk, who want to be in good position as they head to the first turn after the run from the 1.25 mile starting gate there at Churchill Downs, a long run in front of the grandstand. It'll be interesting to see who gets position. I like the fact that Art Collector has enough speed maybe to get right up there on Authentic, but on the other hand, Tis the Law has been such a push button horse to find position early. And Honore P, he's been my kind of horse I wanted to bet at a little bit of odds in here all along, but I don't want him to get shuffled back to 12th. So it'll be interesting. We're projecting Authentic on the lead, maybe Art Collector next, but Tis the Law, New York Traffic, King Guillermo, and others not far behind. Just wanted to get an early look at that pace because I think that's a big thing to think about when you're doing all this handicapping 2 weeks leading up to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, that's for sure. And past performances are starting to show up, so you can really start thinking about the Kentucky Derby. It seems to me like it's going to be another Kentucky Derby where the winner is not going to be a big price. I know, asterisk for last year when Country House got put up to the win at a big price. That wasn't how it happened when they crossed the wire.
That's right. And we both think that the pace projection that we started to talk about today has a lot to do with betting those exotics, figuring out who's going to be second, third, and fourth. Maybe if you really think Tis the Law is the one, who's going to be second, third, and fourth in those trifectas and superfectas. So you need to look at a little bit how you think the race is going to be run to figure that out a little bit. And right now, it looks like this race may not be as fast a pace as we thought a little while ago. Matt, I feel like we did a lot on the show. Pacific Classic, 4-star Dave. We talked about the Del Mar Handicap and the Streaking United. We touched on the Kentucky Oaks Showdown looming. It looks like, and I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but it looks almost certain that Swiss Skydiver is going Kentucky Oaks rather than Kentucky Derby. I don't know if that's completely official yet, but I would be very surprised if they went Kentucky Derby with the filly. And then we looked at the pace projection and where some of the favorites might be, maybe Authentic, the early leader. That's a good show in a short amount of time. Well done, sir.
It sure is. We've been all over the place, but we hit the high spots. And stay with us, folks, because we're going to be doing the same thing the next couple weeks before the big weekend at Churchill Downs. And as always, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
Hey, thanks to Brett. Thanks to all you out there watching every week. Matt and I sure do appreciate it. If you can hit that little red subscribe button here on the YouTube channel of Horse Racing Nation, we sure do appreciate it. Thanks to our sponsor, Matt, the best contest site out there. That's Derby Wars. We look forward to talking Derby with you folks the next 2 weeks before the big race, the first Saturday in September, as well as that showdown in the Kentucky Oaks. So we'll be back here next week on HorseCenter. We'll see you then.